Morning, everybody. My name is Rich Matthews. I'm the Powerhouse Pastor, and wanted to do a video this morning on a passage I've been reading out of Matthew chapter 23, verse 23. I'll read it out of the ESV. It says, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you tithe mint and dill and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others, you blind guides, straining out a gnat and swallowing a camel." Jesus gets real in Matthew 23. Yeah, those are red letters. That's actually Jesus Christ, and he's telling the Pharisees and the scribes and the leaders of the day, you guys are paying a lot of attention to the stuff on the outside, but you are missing the point. You are missing the intrinsic things. You are missing, he says the weightier issues of the law being justice and mercy and faithfulness. And it got me thinking, kind of, I'm a child of the 80s and the 90s. And I remember these bracelets we used to wear. And it was a big movement. I mean, youth pastors would hand them out. It was like every Christian bookstore you ever went to, little bracelets. What would Jesus do? WWJD, coffee mugs, t-shirts, anything. What would Jesus do? And I understand the premise. It's not a bad premise. Our behaviors are important. What would Jesus do? Well, the thing is, though, that the doing is all about our externals. And so I think what we started to teach ourselves in that sort of thinking, if we're thinking, what would Jesus do? We're thinking about, how am I going to organize my externals and my behavior patterns to look more like Jesus? Nothing wrong with that. That's great. We need to do that. But I think there's a higher way. And if I could remake the bracelet, if I could remake the t-shirt, I would say, what does Jesus believe? Because I think it's more important, rather than just emulating what he does, that we believe what he believes. We believe what he believes about righteousness. We believe what he believes about sin. We believe what he believes about people. Man, could you imagine how much we would love? If we're just looking, what would Jesus do? Well, Jesus would love people. And so we're going to find ourselves gritting our teeth and trying our hardest to love people. And guys, it's not in us. Outside of the Holy Spirit, we can't love like he does. The thing is, when we make the switch from doing what he does to believing what he believes, it forces us into his presence. It forces us into a place where we have to get intimate and we have to know him. We can't just read about him. We can't just read about his exploits. We can't just look at what he did and say, oh, if I do X, Y, and Z, I'll be just like Jesus. Believing what he believes forces us into him, and it causes us to sit at his feet and say, Jesus, what do you believe? What do you believe about me? What do you believe about my neighbor? What do you believe about my enemy? God, I am fraught with sin and I'm so tempted. I totally want to do this. But God, what do you believe about this sin that's tempting me? What do you believe about my sexuality? What do you believe about my gender identity? Jesus believes things about this. And I think we have to make the switch to actually become people who believe what he believes about this life and this universe, and the righteousness, peace, and the joy of the Holy Spirit that we're supposed to be walking in. Paying attention to externals, I feel like that's the easy part. And there's a lot of pitfalls there. That's how we get into legalism. That's how we get into the very pharisaicalism that Matthew chapter 23, Jesus is directly coming against. He says you ought to have done these things. He says you ought to have done the weightier things of justice and mercy and faithfulness without neglecting the former, being the tithe, the giving, the external proofs of devotion to Jesus. He said, don't stop doing it, but you got to have the why behind the what. You got to believe what I believe. If you believed what I believe about the poor, you wouldn't be so proud of your tithe. You'd be trying to figure out how to give more. If you believed what I believe about your enemies, you wouldn't be looking for an excuse to write them out of your life. You'd be trying to find a way to express the love of Jesus to them. It changes everything, but it drives us into intimacy. And I think that's an important place to come to. You know, Christianity is not primarily a behavior modification tool. It's primarily a person, Jesus Christ. And we being his hands and feet, the manifestation of his body, the manifestation of his wisdom in the earth. It is essential that we give ourselves to believing what he believes. That way we'll love as he loves. That way we'll orchestrate our life the way he does, because we will build the construct by the Holy Spirit inside of us as we grow in intimacy and as we grow in time and energy spent with him. The construct that produces the fruit, the construct that produces the actions and the behaviors will begin to be built like Jesus's construct is. I think it's a futile exercise to try to create that, to try to bear that fruit without that intimacy. So I hope this is helpful this morning. I'm sorry it's been a while. Again, I'm working a lot. So, but yeah, I've been really stirred by this. And I'm not totally getting it myself. I need more. And that's really the subject of my prayer time right now. Jesus, take me deeper. Show me, teach me to believe what you believe about me, about those around me, about sin, about righteousness, about every wave and gust of wind that's blowing around in our society and in our culture. He has opinions. He has beliefs about it. And if we don't press into him, we're going to miss it. We're going to substitute some sort of taught evangelical behavior pattern for a Holy Spirit construct that produces the fruit of the Spirit in our lives. Let's not do that. God bless. Again, I'm the Powerhouse Pastor. Feel free to like and share. And God bless you. Love you guys.